Hey, Inconsistent Bookworm is back after, sort of a week. The reason why you're probably wondering why I'm actually doing one so quickly, as you can see, I'm doing another manga. I want to keep these coming out at a decent rate. Yeah, I haven't really read much of The Walking. It's still just sitting right here. Or I think I read the first couple paragraphs and that's it. And I was like, I'll put it down. It's not that I don't want to read it, just I was like, I'm in the mood for a manga. I want to read a lighthearted, in a way, jaunt through pretty much mystical areas. Because that's how most mangas are. There's very few mangas that are very, very super serious. And even the ones they tend to have breaks from their super seriousness. And also I want to get these out in a more timely manner than 2 months and all that. So every now and then I'm going to supplement a book review with a manga review in the intervening times. In fact, you might see at least I'm hoping to try and get these out an inconsistent bookworm, even though I'm going to try and put them on a slightly consistent structure. I'm hoping to get them out bi-weekly if I can help it. So manga reviews it's going to be. And this week, of course, as you can read, is, I can't pronounce this one correctly. I'm probably going to butcher it. I think it's pronounced Tsubasa. One of my friends swears up and down that it's pronounced Sayubasha, but there's no H, so I don't know. So we'll see how this is. And really, this is my second ever book that is part of, as you can see right in the very top there where it says Clamp. Now, the reason why this is actually kind of important is because this is a dimension tale, they hop through different dimensions and all that. And also it's one of the books created by the original artists and writers of Card Capture. Probably one of the most infamous animes to come over to the United States. Infamous more because of what happened to it when it came over here. And that has a lot to do with really what the pretty much the dubbing company did. The just brutalizing, just chopping out sections of character development, changing characters' motivations and everything. And really it just is because of how America is vastly different from Japan in a lot of ways. This book helps to prove it. Now, to try and touch more upon this difference between Japanese and American, in Japan it's really, to them it's a lot more okay for, say, a young teenage woman to get naked or be in very ludicrously short dresses or shorts, or pretty much be very sexualized. Here it's a lot more frowned upon. And it is, even though there are entire parts of pornography and all that you can find geared towards teens, but even then, most of what you're going to find is actually just women who look younger. Or you're going to find people who are 18 or 19. You're not going to find people who are not of consenting age. Japan doesn't always have those moral quandaries, those gray areas. I'm not going to speak upon whether that's right or wrong, because really it's a cultural difference. Personally, I will say I believe it is wrong. That's the reason why I had so much fluff about the fact that in Inuyasha, that Kagome, who is obviously 15 or 16, I can't remember her exact age at the beginning in Inuyasha, where she's fully nude. And it's alright, well, that's uncomfortable. But hey, thankfully we don't have any fully nude characters here. But we do have a very interesting little jumping around through dimensions tale. Personally, I have always loved that kind of a way of doing things. Because one of my favorite series of comics that I've always loved, there's been two that really have done it well. I really loved when Marvel Comics used to have the What If series. Those who do not remember Marvel back from the 90s, especially when it came to the more obscure comics, What If was a rather long-running series of comics where it took an event or something that happened to a character and changed it slightly. For instance, a good example is in the Avengers, there was a event, I guess, in a way, but it only spanned across different Avenger comics, and I think also like Quasar and a few others. But it only spanned those comics, and it was called, it was like Operation Galaxy Quest or Galaxy Conquest or something like that. I can't remember. But pretty much it was a battle between the Kree and the Shi'ar. Well, and eventually the Avengers won and blah, 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 bad thing. Some stuff has happened, and it tries to look at the moral quandaries of both sides and says, like, alright, well, which one's good, which one's bad? Really, they're both gray. Which I like that. I like that idea that saying, like, not one side's really worse than the other. Though, eventually, like, the Shi'ar or the Kree are kind of considered the worst out of them all because they try to unleash this weapon that will just utterly annihilate the Earth. Simply because the Avengers are trying to play peacekeeper between the two. But it's not in a way that's completely without being able to understand everything. Now, I bring that up only because What If it was a running series that looked at that and said, alright, well, what if the Avengers lost? And it goes through, and eventually, usually, the good guys win. Which is kind of like, okay. But then there's other things, such as, what if, actually, Legion had managed to kill Magneto at the beginning of the Age of Apocalypse tie-in stuff? Or during the Legion quest that was happening through the 4 X-Men issues, or 4 X-Men comics at the time. There are interesting things like that. I love those kind of like, well, let's see what happens here. Let's see how this is different. Or let's just jump around through these different dimensions. The other comic I used to love that did that was Exiles. A comic that sorely was hurt by the fact that it only was 100 issues. Which sounds like, well, that's actually quite a bit. It is quite a bit, but I felt like there was always more they could have done. It didn't help that there were times whenever sometimes the issues had to, or they decided to write this one story arc, one in particular dealing with, I think it's Protos, or I can't remember his name. Pardon me. Pretty much he was a mutant who could control other mutants. He could get inside them and use their abilities. But the thing was, he like ate them. He would like just destroy them utterly. Like one of the few mutants he could stay in without just completely eating them was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like Sabretooth or Wolverine. It was one of those because their healing factor would constantly regenerate, though after a while he started going fast in their healing factor. There were interesting things like that they would do, but sometimes they got stuck on those storylines for a while, and they would hop around through different dimensions whenever the original intent was just something is happening in these dimensions, and if it is not corrected, it will destroy the entire space-time continuum. Doc Brown kind of stuff. The first 100 issues were, and I say first, and it sounds like I'm just talking about just those, they were actually really magnificent. They had great bits. They had characters introduced from different universes we know, such as they had the original Blink from the Age of Apocalypse series, and eventually introduced the Sabretooth from that. And pretty much Dimension in a way. And then they also had different takes on different characters, such as, hey, here's Mimic and he's still alive, because in the original comic books he died for one reason or another. I can't remember. But the first 100 issues were actually really fantastic. You could see the quality dipped a little bit near the end, mostly because if I'm not mistaken, the same guy was writing them. And after so long, you're going to get a little burnt out. Then they relaunched it with the New Exiles. Boy, was it not good. It just decided to plod along about nothing for quite a while. It tried to do all these other different dimensions and tried to go really unique, and it ended up being dimensions we couldn't follow, or we didn't understand what does this connect with what we see as the 616 world. What does this have anything to do with that world, or how does it seem connected even remotely? Yeah, they did New Exiles. It wasn't very good. I think it lasted like 18 or so issues. So they said, alright, well, we're going to do Exiles 3. And it lasted 6 issues. 6 whole wonderful issues. And it's back because the first few issues are actually pretty good. It felt like a return to the original way in which things were being done. But I'm guessing because so many people were burned by the New Exiles, nobody bothered to pick up Exiles 3. So it ended unceremoniously with like this just rushed ending of a final issue that just really didn't make a lot of sense. And just like, hey, that's my little talk about Exiles. What did I think about Tsubasa, which I'm pretty sure Tsubasa. Keep on throwing an H in there, and there's no H. Well, like I said, this actually was created by the original writer or one of the original writers and artists for Card Capture, Sakura. I can't pronounce her name exactly correctly. Sorry. Now, that is important because if you have noticed from the front cover, they look astonishingly similar. Like, that looks exactly like Sakura, and this looks exactly like Sioran, I think is how his name's pronounced. It's actually here on the back. And in fact, that's what their names are. And they come from a dimension called, or it's the Empire of Clow. Similar to, or I think they call them the Clown Card. I always thought they called them the Clown Cards, but cards. But yeah, there is actually, they say, oh, well, we're part of the Empire Cloud, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's mostly just important because it's little nods towards Card Captor. Also, it just kind of sets up that you should already sort of know these characters. But if you haven't read Card Captor or seen Card Captor in a while, you're going to be a little confused. He just came down here. And I was a little confused at first. I was like, oh, what the hell's going on? But for the most part, I ended up getting it. Now, there are more than just these two main characters. There is also, we get introduced to Korgane, I think is how his name's pronounced, who's pretty much just a ruthless, they keep calling him a ninja, but he seems more like a Ronin. I'm not sure what's going on there. So we'll figure it out later on. He goes around and kills mercilessly. He gets evicted by his princess he's supposed to protect, because she's like, oh, you shouldn't kill people, there's no reason you should have to kill. Yeah, one of them characters. And then we also get introduced to, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Fa? I need to look at it real quick just so I can remember. But honestly, I don't exactly remember how or what things are doing, because some of this is kind of confusing. Yeah, that's actually probably one of the few things I can say bad about this. Is really this has a lot of things that happen throughout it that kind of don't make a lot of sense. So I'm looking at this, I'm trying to find this guy's name, because it's going to bug me. Yeah, Fi. Sorry, I mispronounced his name. Yeah, he is a wizard in all essence, and he spouts philosophical things about magic and all this. Okay. A lot of times it goes over my head. Yeah, we get introduced. Pretty much, you have Sayorn, Kurigane, and Fi. I think his name's pronounced Fi. They introduced to us, and really we're mostly focused on Sayorn. There's not a whole lot on Kurigane except for he's kind of ruthless and he's kind of a jerk. Fi is your typical, he's nice, but you have that feeling like you shouldn't trust him completely. It's one of those things where you're like, I bet there's more to this. They're going to wait till later volumes and all that to explain to us. But somehow they go hopping in and around these different dimensions. Well, it's like Sakura and all them, they end up getting pushed through this dimensional portal because supposedly their dimension doesn't have any magic, even though somehow they get magic and Sakura has magic. And they actually get to meet the witch, as they call her, from Holic. Those of you who have never read any more of the Clamp series of mangas, I keep on calling them comics, there is another series they do which sometimes called Triple X Holic. Really what it is meant to be is called is just Holic because the Triple X is just simply the 3 X's that are in front of the Holic are meant to signify like, well, alcoholic, photoholic, you know, it's talking about somebody who, pardon me, who is addicted to stuff, usually, or something like that, and she's trying to fix, and she's trying to help them. For instance, in the first manga, I have it, if you're wondering how I actually know this, she is trying to help this lady who she constantly lies about stuff. She gives her a ring to help her quit lying, and, well, it ends up getting her killed because of the lady's own lying tendencies. Good. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to go outside, so I'm like, yeah, I gotta go through the camera and cut around this crap again. Yeah, Sakura and Sayorn, or Sakura, I will never pronounce her name exactly correctly. It seems like everybody pronounces it differently, so fuck it, I'll throw another one on there. They end up going to her because she is in a coma in a way, but it turns out it's because of her feathers, which are actually her memories. This is a little weird, I will let you know. The story is a bit weird. And Kurigane's there simply because he wants to get back to his original dimension. Fi is there because he says he doesn't want to go back to his dimension. And the witch says, alright, we all gotta travel together, go get her memories. Why they gotta travel to help Sakura, it's not exactly explained very well. But I will say, despite the fact that this story has its faults, the first fault is the art style is a little, you got to be willing to give it some leeway. And also, it can get very, very busy. A perfect example is this page right here that I was looking at. Right here. There is a lot of action going on, and they tried to put in quite a few panels, but because some of the panels are very small, and there's a lot of movement lines, there's a lot of texture lines and shadows and all this and that, it can get to be very, very difficult to try and follow. Sorry. I have a little beard going on, so some of the hairs are getting in my mouth. Driving me mad. I mean, the art is a little, you have to be willing to give it some leeway. I know some are like, oh, well, it's kind of a slightly older book. You shouldn't expect clean stuff. And also, this artist is known for doing exactly very clean work. I'm not saying she has to change how she does things at all. I'm just saying sometimes it's not always for you. For me, sometimes it can be a little distracting from the story. Art should never distract. It should always enhance. That's a good motto to go by. Also, the story, as I've already kind of described it, they're dimension hopping to try and get Sakura's memories back. See, I think I pronounced it out 4 different times differently. But they're trying to get her memories back. And that story is fine and all, but you don't even get any of the meat of it or know what they're doing till nearly volume 3. Or till near the end, or till the beginning of volume 3. It's like near the end of volume 2 they finally explain what it is. Because there's gotta be this little back and forth between Kurogane and Phi. There's also introduced this little like Pokemon creature called Mokano? Or something like that. Pretty much he is a little creature who can help them hop through dimensions. Now, actually, it is past volume 3 because there's volume 3 right there. And yeah, they finally actually go forward. Like, this is the rest of the book, and that's when they actually began moving forward. It's stuff like that that kind of makes it a little slow and a little. You wonder why they spent so much build-up at times. And also that is another issue. There's a lot of build-up to these two characters and their relationship, which is good, but there's not a good amount of build-up to Kurogane or Phi. It's fine, since I know they're probably going to introduce more and go more into their characters later, in that sense, but we don't even have a similar build-up to those two. We don't know why Kurogane really cares about going back to his realm, simply other than the fact that he was ejected from it. It's like, well, what did you like about your realm you want to go back to? Phi, we don't understand his reasonings behind wanting to leave. Probably it's because it's lonely and he's the only one left. I'm having to guess, because even he's talking to this one woman that he pretty much says he created. And that is an issue that can come up. But, despite all of that... sorry. I am going to eventually shave this crap. Yeah. But despite all of that, I would say read it still. I say it's still worth it to go pick it up or go find it again. You know, just go back through and see what's going on with it. See if you still like it as much as you maybe originally did. Or maybe you thought you didn't like it and you want to try and give it another shot. There are a few kind of like little goofy bits. Like they go to, at the very end, they go to this one world where all these people have pretty much like spirit animals in a way. And in all essence, it looks like Pokemon. It looks like a bunch of Pokemon fighting. But I still like it. I still had fun watching it and reading through it and everything. I'd be interested to see if there is an anime based on this. I think there is. So hey, maybe it gave me another anime to watch. Yeah, for the most part, the story is good. It's weird, and some parts don't exactly mesh very well, but it's still very good. I'm gonna read the second one. I'm gonna see how long this story stays good. See if it can fix some of the issues, not necessarily with the art, but more fix issues with the pacing. The pacing is a bit of an issue. The first volume, I know it's meant to set things up, but I hate to compare it to one really great one and another one I seem kind of iffy about. Death Note really set the pace early on. It said, alright, this is how things are going to be. This is how things are going to get done. Here you go. Inuyasha very similarly set the pace. This is how things are going to be done. This is how things are going to go. And really we got our first major story near the last few volumes. Or last few chapters. This really took a while to really get things set up. Like, this is how things are going to get done. This is our first story. Like, the first story really doesn't start till chapter 5, which is the final chapter, and it's like 10 pages long. The others, it's like others waited, or only waited till like chapter 4, maybe midway through chapter 3. This one doesn't ponder that long. Or this one ponders a lot longer is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, brain's like, no, I don't care right now. Yeah, other than that though, if it picks up a little bit of the writing, you know, picks up the pace a little bit, I'm gonna still keep enjoying this. Maybe it can replace the Exiles in my heart, since we do not have in our Exiles, and we probably will never have in our Exiles. Sad. Oh, and also, those of you who have wondered about this, and something I've unfortunately forgot to mention, there is a lot of mentions to other mangas that have been done by Clamp and all that, which I actually enjoy, even though some of the mangas I may not have read, but if the worlds are interesting enough, I might go back to read them. There's one that they even mentioned, I think it's X Parentheses 199 or something like that, that they go to where they pretty much come across the this little tiger island of Japan, where the Pokemon people pretty much are. I know people are like angry at me because, oh, they have this exact name or all this. I know they have an exact name, but me? Yeah, good book. Looking forward to the sequel, though I'm not going to read it right next because I do need to start reading this. But hey, I might read another manga. I just have to decide what it's going to be. So I will see you all next time whenever Inconsistent Bookworm maybe gets a little bit more consistent. I'll see you all later.